My mom said, "You've changed." I said, "That's how healing works." I remember that morning like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the sunlight slipping through the blinds and hitting the chipped corner where I'd scratched my initials as a kid. Mom walked in, carrying her coffee mug that always smelled faintly of cinnamon. She froze when she saw me, her eyes narrowing just a little. "You've changed," she said softly, but I could hear the judgment behind the words. I looked up at her, took a deep breath, and said, "That's how healing works." She blinked, probably expecting a tantrum or a denial, but I had no words to argue with because it was true. The last year had been brutal. Dad leaving, my best friend ghosting me, losing that job I thought I'd grow into forever. I'd spent nights crying on the floor of my apartment, wrapped in blankets that smelled like home, questioning if I could ever feel safe again. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt myself. Therapy, long walks through the park, sketching faces in notebooks no one would ever see, talking to strangers who somehow understood without judgment. I healed, and it changed. Mom crossed the kitchen, set her mug down, and tried a small smile. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, but I could hear the tension in her voice. I shrugged, and for a moment, we just watched the sunlight move across the table, quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I wanted her to see that I wasn't angry, not really, that I was proud of the way I survived. But how do you make someone understand that the person they raised had been through a storm and walked out alive, even if different? The changes weren't just emotion, they were practical too. I started waking up earlier, making myself proper breakfast, walking the dog even when I didn't feel like. I organized my apartment so it felt calm instead of chaotic. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned years ago, painting, cooking meals from scratch, even learning a new language just for fun. Friends noticed too. Some were jealous of the discipline I'd gained. Others were inspired. But with Mom, it was different. She remembered the old me, the messy, anxious, clingy version, and I think it frightened her that I was finally free from that. A week later, I found a letter she had tucked in my drawer. Her handwriting was shaky, like she had cried while writing. She told me she noticed the walls I'd put up, the way I chose friends differently, the way I smiled less out of habit and more out of protection, and she said she was proud. That hit harder than anything. Healing had made me stronger, but it had also made me distant from people I loved most. Mom was learning to catch up, and I realized for the first time that maybe change wasn't just survival. It was growth, even if it scared the people around you. That evening, we sat on the porch together, the sky pink and orange, and she handed me her coffee mug, full of cinnamon smell like old times. "I'm trying to understand," she said, and I felt the weight lift just a little. Maybe healing doesn't just change you, maybe it also teaches others to change too. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. I looked at her, touched her hand lightly, and whispered, "I know, and I love you anyway." We sat there, drinking in silence, until the sky turned purple and stars started appearing. I realized that healing wasn't just about surviving pain, it was about creating moments like this. Moments where connection could return even after years of fear and resentment. I knew it would take time for both of us to adjust, but for the first time, I felt hope that we could walk this new path together, slowly rebuilding trust and love. And as I watched her sip her coffee, smiling faintly, I understood something crucial. Healing might change you, but it also gives others the chance to grow alongside you. Even in the quiet, I could feel the invisible cracks of our past start to close, slowly, gently, finally.